Raise your hand if you like watching prank videos online. A couple of you. Okay, am I the only person? Okay, raise your hand if you just like pranking people. Yeah? Okay, can somebody just tell me one of your favorite quick pranks that you've ever done to somebody? Yes, Ellery.
Okay, so Danny and I were checking everyone in, and then Danny went to sit down, and I took his chair away.
Danny, did you fall? That is a really great prank. Yes, Lauren.
Going in a crowd and putting random clothespins on people.
Random clothespins. I remember that, Haley.
I accidentally scared Miss Linda.
You accidentally scared Miss Linda. That's a good one. Wyatt, last one. Yeah, poppets. That's mean. Oh my gosh, you guys are funny. Those are for some. I'm glad that was some pretty lighthearted ones. So sometimes you have one. You could tell me it later, Jack. One that you heard. Okay, you tell it to us later. You tell it in your small groups later. So sometimes, though, we all know that pranks can go too far. Like, you guys know the ones. Like, have you ever pushed somebody into the pool while they're wearing their best clothes and also their phones in their pocket, and then their most expensive shoes that they own is in there, and you, like, ruin it? I've seen that happen to somebody. Or have you ever watched a video of somebody putting Nair hair remover into somebody's shampoo? That is the worst. Or I have seen people that have done food pranks and it's gone too far and it's made the person throw up and never want to eat that food again. After some of these pranks that I've seen or maybe heard, I can't help but wonder, how could you ever forgive that person that did the prank to you and move on from that? Like, if someone ever put Nair in my shampoo, I would never forgive that person. Like, that, I love my hair so much. I swear, if any of you do that, I don't even know what I'd do. I'd just be sad the rest of my life. And sometimes the things that make us angry or make us hold a grudge against somebody towards someone are worse than really a bad prank. Like, have you guys ever not made plans or not had any plans made in your friend group one weekend, and then you're sitting there at home scrolling through your Instagram and you see a picture that one of your friends posted to where all of your friends are hanging out without you and they didn't tell you? And publicly, you kind of shrugged it off, like, it was fine, it's okay, but it still bothers you today, and they really hurt you. Literally every single person was there hanging out except for you. Or maybe your resentment or anger stems from a direct hit on your character. Like, maybe one of your friends that you thought was your friend actually talked bad about you behind your back and you find out about it. And that really hurt because they were supposed to be your friend. They were supposed to have your back. And now you're just really bitter about it, even though they might not even know that you're bitter to them about it. And if we're honest, something about that little bit of bitterness becomes kind of sweet. Do you get that feeling? Sometimes we just want to hold on to our annoyance or hold on to that bitterness or frustration. I mean, what do we all do with the worst stuff that happens to us? Especially those times when we can't stop thinking about it, when we can't stop thinking about that moment when that person hurt us. When we are young, it typically goes like this. Someone does something to you that's bad, and an adult comes in and tells the person to say they're sorry, and so then that person gives you a half-hearted, I'm sorry, without really meaning it, and then you move on. And as a kid, it can be hard to quickly switch from being hurt to accepting an apology and moving on from that and forgiving that person who hurt you. But I would say it's just as hard, if not harder, as we grow older to do that same thing. And so this whole feeling of bitterness and struggling with forgiveness is something that's been a problem for a very long time. I mean, for as long as there's been people, there has been bitterness and grudges, let me tell you. And we can actually see a lot of this in the Bible when we're reading it, because the people in the Bible dealt with the very same thing a lot of the time, with bitterness and how to forgive people that have done wrong to them. And so about 2,000 years ago, after the resurrection of Jesus, the church was just kind of getting started. And so one of the main leaders of the early church was Paul. And so we've talked about Paul from stage before, but if you don't know who Paul is, he was a massive, popular public figure when it came to Christian culture. But there was a catch, because being a popular and liked by Christians meant that he was also infamous and hated by people who did not like Christians, who weren't Christian, who didn't like Jesus. And meaning because he was such a high-profile believer, he was also a big target to those people who were not really with Jesus, that were very against Jesus' ideals and who he stood for. And being a target meant that he suffered for publicly serving Christ, like being put into prison over and over again. He was beaten and flogged and stoned. And those were just a couple of things, bad things that happened to him because he was a Christ follower and such a public and popular Christ follower. So here's this guy. He was trying to do good, trying to help people, trying to serve God, and that's how he gets treated. Now, if anybody deserved to be bitter about something, it was Paul during his lifetime. And so during his time traveling around, he was trying to help communities start churches all around Rome and around Eastern Europe and stuff. And in one of these, or the Mideast. And so in one of these letters to the church that he would write to churches all the time and helping them with different problems, one of the churches in Thessalonica, Paul is encouraging the new Christians there and challenging them to live differently than the world around them lives, than the world around them had actually lived. And so you see, they were having a hard time because they were facing a similar persecution that Paul was because they believed in Christ. And so one verse in particular actually takes an interesting approach to the idea of bitterness and unforgiveness that they were probably feeling. So we're going to look at the first half here that Paul says to the church in Thessalonica. So in 1 Thessalonians, he says, make sure that nobody pays back wrong for wrong. Make sure nobody pays back wrong for wrong. Now maybe you're thinking, well, Megan, that seems a little harsh. I mean, I might be bitter about what my friend did to me, but I'm not sitting in the dark room plotting revenge on everybody that's ever hurt me before. And yes, Paul isn't just talking about that hardcore revenge that we might think about when we think of paying back wrong for wrong. He was talking about just not continuing the cycle of wrong. And so maybe for us in our day, paying back wrong for wrong might sound a little bit like he never apologized, so I can't forgive him. Maybe it sounds like they don't deserve my forgiveness or friendship after what they did. Or maybe it's they didn't earn my forgiveness, or they didn't pay for what they did yet. Or they hurt me, so I'm going to show them exactly how that felt. Now, Paul had some legitimate reasons to be upset, right? But even though he had suffered for very unfair reasons and suffered a lot, he didn't believe that his mistreatment required revenge. Now he goes on after this to say this very thing. He says, but always strive to do what is good for each other and for everyone else. So hold up. Always strive to do what is good for each other and for everyone else. Now, not only are we supposed to keep ourselves from paying someone back wrong for wrong, but we're also supposed to be nice to them. I mean, come on, did you hear what my friend did to me? Did you hear what that person did to my friend? It doesn't exactly seem fair, right? And you know what? It isn't. And that's the thing. Jesus, when we believe in Jesus, he changes how we see everything, especially forgiveness. But Paul understood a fundamental truth about bitterness and holding on to hurt. And that truth is this: the more you hold on to the grudge, the more it holds on to you guys. The more you hold on to that thing that you're bitter about, the more it affects you. A grudge is like a weight that you carry with you. It's like putting on a backpack, and every time something happens and you're carrying around that bitterness or a grudge, you're putting more weight in your backpack and it gets heavier and heavier. When you replay the offense over and over again in your mind without any intention of doing anything, you put a weight in there and you have to carry it around. Or you complain to others in hopes of getting them to turn against that person that you're mad at. You put another weight in your backpack and you carry that around. Or you make up in your mind that you will never forgive that person for what they did to you. You put another weight in there and you have to carry that around. Or you decide you're going to cancel that person for good. The weight of the offenses, they only harm you though. Your day-to-day life will get trapped and weighed down and being consumed by this unforgiveness, by carrying around all of these grudges and all of these things that we're holding on because of that hurt. You know, I was once told that unforgiveness is like drinking poison and hoping the other person gets sick. Have you ever thought about that? What you're doing when you're holding on to that grudge, you are yourself drinking that poison, getting sick, in hopes of somebody else getting sick. And I didn't quite understand that at the time, but over the years, I kept coming back to that. Unforgiveness and bitterness can be a nasty cycle that we can get stuck in if we're not careful. And the more we dwell and focus on the wrong and how angry we are, the more poisonous it is for us. You see, I grew up thinking that forgiveness was for the other person. That's how I was taught in Sunday school. The forgiveness is for the one that wronged me. But you know what? Forgiveness is really for me. Forgiveness is a conscious decision to let go of someone's debt to us and not expect them to make up for it. Yes, they owe you, but you decide not to wait until they pay you. It's your way of letting go of revenge and negative emotion, and not for others to benefit. And when we start to let go of the hurt, the bitterness, and the resentment, they no longer get to control how they feel, and those feelings don't get to control us. In fact, it takes the power away from them because we choose to remove the poison from ourselves. And so, side note, let's be clear here for a second. We are by no means saying that people who treat you unfairly, abuse you, or take advantage of you gets a free pass to keep on doing it. If you are experiencing any kind of abuse, this is your encouragement and permission to have a conversation with a trusted adult, to speak up about it. You know, guys, Jesus sets the example of forgiveness when he died on the cross for us. He showed us how to be selfless and forgive because he knew it was going to be hard. He knew we would want to pay back wrong for wrong and hold on to our bitterness and hurt, because sometimes it's so much easier to hold on to that than to let go of it. But Jesus wants us to forgive for our sake, not just for the other people. He wants us to live happy and healthy lives. And to clarify, forgiveness is not that you aren't hurt. It's not that the other person shouldn't experience a consequence for what they did. It doesn't mean the relationship has to stay the same. It doesn't mean you can't set boundaries. It doesn't mean you condone or excuse the offense. It doesn't mean that you have to continue dating that person. And it doesn't mean you stay quiet if someone is hurting you or other people. Speaking up is not tattling or getting that person in trouble. It is loving yourself and telling a trusted adult to keep yourself and others safe. Speaking up is being honest for the good of everybody here. And forgiveness isn't a magic Band-Aid that makes everything better overnight. It never makes what someone did okay or right, but it is the first step towards healing and a better tomorrow that we can have. Now, I realize that some of you have been hurt deeply by people you care about. And that makes things complicated because your hurt is very justified and so is your anger. But I can promise you this: the only way to find freedom from that anger and resentment is to forgive the other person, even if they don't deserve it, even if they're not sorry, and maybe even especially if they're not sorry. Because what forgiveness really means is to give before someone else is sorry or deserves it. And I realize that's asking a lot, and it won't happen overnight, and we're not going to be perfect. I'm not perfect with that. But here are 3 steps that we can take to get that freedom from the bitterness and unforgiveness. So the first one is to acknowledge your feelings. It is okay to be hurt, upset, angry, sad, or disappointed, friends. Pretending like these feelings aren't there doesn't make them go away. And that second step, don't let your feelings control you when you do have those feelings. You can give up your right to get revenge when your anger says, I deserve to get them back. You can work to let go of your feelings, your anger and frustration, instead of being held hostage by them. It's okay to feel those feelings, but it's okay to also not get stuck in those feelings. And then the third thing is to repeat it. There's no overnight success to escaping bitterness. It's a process, it takes time. So keep taking one step and then taking it again and then again. Sometimes forgiving someone feels like the other person is getting something on you, you know? But as you head out, think about this. What are you getting from holding your bitterness? If you could stop replaying the offense over and over again in your mind, how much time would you get back? If you could let go of your need to be right, how much less stress would you feel? If you could let go of your need to make things even, what else could you be doing with those moments? I know it sounds counterintuitive or unreasonable, and I know it sounds unfair. And most of all, I know it may sound impossible because sometimes it really sounds impossible to me. Because especially when things are really hard and that person really messed up and really hurt you, it might seem really unforgivable. But even though this feels like giving up power on your end, letting go actually empowers you. It allows you to finally be released from the poisonous resentment that eats away at you or robs you of your joy in life. And when we let go, when we're kind to those who have mistreated us, we take the first step from hurt towards healing. And because forgiveness is let me start that again. Because forgiving someone is the best thing you can do with the worst of the things that you feel. So will you pray with me? Lord, forgiveness is a hard thing. It's a hard thing to ask us to forgive someone that's really hurt us bad. But then we remember that you died on the cross for the forgiveness of our sins. You made the ultimate sacrifice to show us what the ultimate example of forgiveness is. Now, I know you know we're not going to be perfect, but I know you're going to be there with us in every step of the way and that you're going to help us learn how to forgive. Lord, I ask that you be with these students in their hurts and maybe some of their grudges or resentments of others, and ask that you help heal those situations, that you help them get to a place where they can forgive that person, even if they might not deserve it, or even if they might not know that they even need forgiveness yet. It's in your name I pray. Amen.